Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today, I am joined by transformational coach, author, and the founder of Glow Living, a platform that's designed to help people with emotional balance, purpose, and resilience. Chandra Lynn. Chandra has also had a career in marketing for 25 years for brands like Apple, Mercedes, and Tyra Banks. So we're going to be talking to her about everything that she's up to and her book, Root to Rise, How to Love Life. Chandra, thank you so much for joining me.
I'm so happy to be here with you, Curtis. Thank you for having me.
Why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, I loved your intro, first of all. I
Thank
think
you.
that's a really good recap. Like you said, my whole career I've been a marketing consultant, and in about 2011, I decided I needed to do some personal growth and development work for myself, and I put myself in a coaching certification program from the Robbins Madonna's training. And just over about 4 years, I learned so much, and all of my hard-won wisdom from life came rushing in. And, I somehow ended up with a framework that I created called Root to Rise to help other people, which started off as an online course and then went to workshops. And now, with the pandemic, it gave me time to go deeper, and I'm able to offer it in a book form. So I'm super excited to be launching that and promoting it here with you today.
Talk about how or why you started your own marketing consultancy and how your career has shaped the way you serve clients today.
Okay, yeah. So in January of 2000, I started Glow Marketing, which is glowmarketing.com. And really, I think it was because I had a long history working in music and doing everything from concert promotion to working in radio and magazines. And I just wanted to be able to work on a variety of different things. I love variety. I love to work on different projects for different people. So I decided, well, I think I'm ready to go off on my own and start to attract clients and have a number of clients and projects that I could work on at one time. And instead of working, in for one company where I had to probably commute, so I did a lot of commuting back in the day. I was just ready to be my own boss.
Okay, well, talk about what it was like because I know you've done marketing for brands such as Apple, Mercedes, and Tyra Banks. So as much as you can, talk about that and what that experience was like.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. We're talking about a 25-year span. So when I started, it was January of 2000, like I said, and now I'm still doing consulting and we're in 2025. So it's been 25 years of just building relationships. I think relationships is really the key to my success. I haven't had to advertise my business. Everything is through word of mouth and just doing a great job for people, on different projects. And as a result, getting recommended to do other things. I can tell you the fun story about getting connected with Tyra Banks. I got a call out of the blue from someone who had heard about me from someone else, and he said, "Well, I'm working as the acting, executive director for Bankable Enterprises, and we need some help. And so, um, would you come out to New York and meet with me and Tyra?" And I didn't know this guy at all, right? So I'm, looking at having to jump on a plane at my own expense at the chance of meeting Tyra and this being legit and who knows, right? This day and age you have to be really careful. So I did a little bit of investigative research to find out more about bankable enterprises and this guy Michael and who he was and everything. And I just at the end of the day decided, you just have to show up for these opportunities and take the risk. Well, knowing that I was perfectly safe, I was able to go out there and just take the chance. And next thing you know, I'm in a conference room and here saunters in the gorgeous Tyra Banks, and she was just so gracious. We were wearing a similar color, so she made me feel comfortable right away talking about us being kindred spirits with the same color on and everything, and just ended up working for her, managing Tyra.com for over a year and doing all kinds of different projects. Became known as her special forces, working on everything from, a brand jingle that we created to helping her to get the trademark to a makeup line, to branding, some different programs she was working that needed logos. I mean, it just seemed like Michael was calling me with so many different projects that just with that one client was able to experience a lot of variety. But, it took me making the leap and just getting on that plane and deciding that I was going to go for it.
Well, talk about your book, tell listeners about what we can expect when we read it and where to get it. And also, you decided to self-publish, to tell us why you decided to do that and how that journey was.
Okay, well, let me start there because, I'll just say that after I developed the book, it took me about 5 years to develop the content. It's very deep. I was worried that it was going to be too much for one book. I did find a way to streamline it and turn it into a framework that people have said that is easy to read and very encouraging, and I guide them through it like a friend. And that, hearing that feedback that that's working is really great. But I made the leap to do it myself because I was being told by literary agents and publishers that they were looking for people who already had huge followings. I mean, it could be as much as like 250,000 engaging followers. And, my whole career I've spent helping people grow their audiences, not developing one of my own. And so I decided, I need to do this for myself, and even if it just helps one person, I'm going to put it out there. And also, I liked the idea of maintaining all of my intellectual property rights. I have a fantastic lawyer, Rafter Marsh Law, who I credit with my trademarks and my copywriting. And the advice to retain as much ownership as you can. It is definitely difficult to do everything yourself, but I feel like, the indie author journey is very rewarding, and I do have a community of supportive people, so it helps me. But it put me back to my own self-help school and had to learn from a beginner's mind how to enter a very different industry than I was accustomed to learn how to grow my own following and encourage people to read the book. So the book is currently available on Amazon, and for people who want signed, personalized copies, I sell direct through Etsy. So people can go to glowliving.etsy.com, and I'm able to offer discount codes. So I can offer you guys 25% off using the code RISE25. So RISE at glowliving.etsy.com. And the cool thing is I'm able to sign it for you either to your name or just with my signature or to someone else you're buying it for if you'd like to gift it. And it allows me to do it, use special packaging and really personalize it in a way I can't do on Amazon. And as an indie author, it also gives me more proceeds to be able to put back into the marketing of the book. So yeah, I strongly encourage people to self-publish if they have something, in their hearts to share. And I'm happy to share any tips that I've found so far to be successful. I'm still working on my own success, but I have learned a few things, few hard knocks already.
Well, talk about you talk about the six hidden forces that drive our decisions. So talk about what those are and how can people discover their own.
Oh, I love this topic. So this is a big part of what I'm all about is learning about these hidden forces that are driving our key life decisions. And the punchline is the hidden forces are tied to your human needs. So, just like Maslow defined with the six human needs, I've adapted Maslow's work and applied them to five major root areas of your life. Your health, your relationship, your career, your friends, and your family. And I created a free quiz where people can identify which of the needs is driving a lot of their decisions. So, for example, if your driving need is security, you might be somebody that has stayed in a job or a relationship or in a house, a location for a really long time. You may be a little bit more risk adverse. There's some really great things about that kind of building that kind of level of stability, but you also have to watch out for, limiting your own growth. And so that's just an example of one possible scenario based on your results of the quiz and learning about this in a lot more detail in my book. But I do encourage people to learn about how they've been meeting their human needs and which I call the hidden forces, because it is so revealing about why you may be stuck in different areas of your life. We do serve our needs. We have to, and sometimes we're willing to do it in low quality ways that keep us stuck. And I am here with my book to help you to identify that and get unstuck in all those areas that, may be holding you back from your rise.
Let's take a quick break.
Okay, everybody, it's Michael E. Cullen II.
And I'm Sesame and Carta from the All Too Real 2 podcast. We're passionate about movies, TV, and pretty much all things pop culture.
Dive into the chaos of failed sitcoms, direct-to-video sequels, and the quirky realms of cinema and TV.
Join us every Thursday for your dose of All Too Real 2 entertainment.
We'll guide you through debates like whether Howard the Duck qualifies as a superhero.
Ponder if Larry the Cable Guy could be the new Rock or Schwarzenegger.
Discover if some shows and movies should have stayed in the cutting room.
Ever heard of a sitcom featuring that dictator with the funny mustache? Well, we watched it.
We're dedicated to unraveling the peculiarities of pop culture, sometimes with awesome guests.
So, if you're into the eccentric world of pop culture,
listen and subscribe to All Too Real 2.
Available wherever you find podcasts
and on Age of Radio.
Well, midlife can feel like a crossroads. So, what advice would you give people who may be navigating, a big transition or, be stuck at a crossroads?
Well, I'm navigating that as well. So I hope people find a lot of encouragement in my book, knowing that, it's coming from somebody who's right there with them, on this journey in midlife where maybe what we've been doing, all along feels starting to fall a little flat. Maybe, we're not our identities are needing to shift a little bit. Our value system is changing. We might be wondering why we didn't accomplish everything we set out to do. Where did we get stuck along the way? Or what's going to or maybe we did accomplish a lot and we're just wondering, why we're not feeling as fulfilled by it as we thought we would by now. And so the book is an invitation to go a little deeper to not only figure out how you're serving those needs in different ways, but finding new ways to align to things based on what your current interests are and kind of who you want to become more of. I believe that we're multifaceted diamonds and that all of the identities that we've had and all the things, that we've done are aspects of ourselves. And sometimes in order to grow, we have to take on new identities. So for example, I've been a mom for, my son's 19 years of life, and now I'm taking on the identity of an empty nester. So I'm still a mom. It doesn't mean I'm not a mom anymore. It's just a different role as an empty nester. And so I'm learning about taking on that role. I coached somebody recently who was a professional salesperson in radio, super, super talented, just, made tons of money along the way. She was so fierce with her, her sales that she called herself the eagle. But yet in midlife, she started to feel like She was dreading those sales quotas. She wasn't inspired by what she was doing anymore. She was really wanting to go on a more creative path as a writer and a comedian. And she needed to, start to realize that she didn't have to fully let go of that identity as an eagle, but she had to realize that that was an aspect of herself that was no longer serving her growth. And so she was able to learn to add the identity of being a creative to put that aspect of herself in the sun and let the other aspects go back, take a back seat or be put in the shadows for a little while as she developed these new parts of herself so that she could grow and that she could start to feel a new level of fulfillment with where she was at. Didn't take away from the fact that she had a lot of success. It just meant that that success was no longer serving her, and success was being defined differently. So to realize that how we valued things and how we defined success in the past may shift in midlife, and realigning to your new truth of what excites you, even if it's not the ways that you're used to or comfortable with, is just saying, look, it's an invitation to grow. And if we deny it, then we're going to stay feeling unhappy with our life because I believe that in order to feel fulfillment, we need to be on a path of growth. We need to feel some progress. Progress is what brings that feeling of joy. And so fulfillment, is defined in my mind by the amount of, joy that we can invite into our life. And so I do always encourage people to grow and feel like they're progressing in some way towards something more purposeful, something that gives their life more meaning.
Well, for all the women entrepreneurs out there, give them some best practice tips on how to connect with their purpose and turn their passion into a sustainable business.
Yes, well, I have definitely found that there's, you know, especially for midlife women, that feeling a sense of purpose usually is tied to giving back in some way. There's been hard-won wisdom, and I think it's totally true for men as well, that, it's how to take our adversities, our experience, this wisdom that we now have, having lived as long as we have, and doing something to help other people. And when we do that, we not only feel like we're connected to a purpose, but we feel like we have a significance. This life of ours has a significance, and it's kind of what puts us on that path to rise and to leaving a legacy that we're proud of, and that others can be inspired by even long after we pass. And so, what I would say as far as turning that into a business is, looking at those areas where you feel like they can have a value that would be able to translate into some kind of sales. So you're seeing a lot of people turning into coaches where they're taking their experience. So it might be like, for example, this woman who went from an eagle to a creative, she may be able to monetize a coaching program to help other women, be pivot into something totally new for themselves. There's other people that might have gone through a very difficult divorce, and they can support people in going, through a major transition like a divorce, or they might decide to go back to school and learn a new skill or an art form or something. It just whatever they're passionate about. It could be flower arranging, and they take a class and they start selling bouquets. I mean, it literally has to do with finding and tapping in that passion and giving yourself permission to embrace it as a part of your identity and your offerings. So, depending on what it is that they want to do, there's different abilities to turn that into a business. And one way that I would recommend that people do that is by taking advantage of the SCORE program. SCORE is a nonprofit organization of mentors. So they can be matched up with people that have had experience doing the very thing that they want to do or something similar, and having a mentor completely free. I think it's score, SCORE.org, I believe. And you can be matched with a mentor that knows about the business you're looking to get into to figure out ways to monetize. But the first step is tapping within and looking when you're being totally honest with yourself. There's no one else, to ask these questions to. It's you. What do you want? Why do you want that? And what are you willing to do about it? Are you willing to seek a resource out like SCORE? Are you willing to create a business plan? Are you willing to go get some training? Are you willing to come step out of a comfort zone of what you've been doing to try something new? And if you are willing to, then there's resources available out there, some free resources to help you. And there's probably people in your life that would love to see you be successful and support you along the way as well. So it's figuring that all out for yourself. But it really starts with that core question of what do you want now? And if you can even answer that, if you can't, you have to do some deep diving, some journaling, some talking with people. And then when you are able to speak out loud what you want, you have to dig into the why. Because when it gets hard, when you start to struggle and wonder if you made the right decision to go down this road, you need your why. You need to connect back into that taproot that's going to keep you going through the hard times. And when you have that clear why that'll get you through those things, then you can look at the building blocks, the steps, the roadmap, whatever you want to call it, to get yourself there. But if you rush right into your tactics and you just start going for it, when it gets hard, which it will, starting a business is never easy, you got to have that why to get you through it to keep you going.
Well, for those who are feeling stuck and overwhelmed right now, what is the first step that you would advise them to take?
I would advise them to take my needs assessment because what it does is it looks at these 5 different areas of your life. It looks at how you've been meeting your needs or not meeting your needs in these different areas. And it will isolate the need or two or three that you need to focus on. Because when people are overwhelmed, they're trying to boil the ocean. They're just trying to do too much. So the needs assessment, which is part of the Root to Rise book and system, I have an online course for it too, and I'm going to be coming out with a companion workbook to help with specifically with this, that you can say, look, I want to just focus on the things that are really where I'm really stuck and really holding me back. I can't do everything all at once. My friend Cynthia Smith always calls that, stop boiling the ocean. Don't boil the ocean. It's like, don't try to do everything. Look for the things that you can do that are going to make a big impact, that are going to make a difference, and focus on those things first, because then some of that other stuff will fall in line. And I'll give you an example. If you're struggling with your health, it's very difficult to expect yourself to do much more than focus on your health. If you're going to be depleted, your energy's drained, how do you expect yourself to, achieve a lot when you're physically, challenged? So that gives you an example of a root area that can be focused on to get yourself in a better, healthier place so that when you go to tackle these other goals, you have the energy for it. And so that's just one example of where you can focus on one thing and then it'll make the other things a little bit easier, or at least you don't have to try to overwhelm yourself with doing it all at once. And the needs assessment will help you identify which things to focus on first to give yourself the best chance of a success.
Talk about the best way for somebody to build emotional resistance during loss, change, or transition.
Well, so emotional resilience is something that takes time to work on and exercising your I have a tool in the book called the emotional triad that I learned in my coaching program that I've adopted as well to kind of dovetail into how you manage your body, mind, and spirit. So, what I would say is the first thing is to look at your how you use your physiology and like what's happening with your health, because that is your foundational area of your emotional resilience, believe it or not, is coming from your physiology. The second thing is what you're focusing on. Look at all the things that you could be focusing on and look at where your mind is going, because that's why people get into gratitude practices. They might be focusing on things that they're not happy with and not focusing enough on the things that they do have going for them, and that can have their focus bring them into a negative place. And then the third thing is the meaning that we're attaching to the thing we're focusing on. So if you're focusing on, something negative and you attach a really negative meaning, of course you're going to be depressed or have anxiety. But if you can, look at assigning a meaning and using a language with yourself that's more empowering then and encouraging, then even though you recognize that there's a problem or you have maybe a reason to be upset, you're not going to stay stuck. You're going to know that there's resources out there, that there's a way to get from that negative emotional state to a more positive one when you put the emotional triad into effect and you use your physiology positively, you focus on the right things, and you attach the right meaning to things. That can actually completely change even a depressive course or a course where you're setting yourself, into an anxiety attack or whatever. Like, we don't, I think there's definitely the difference between clinical depression and anxiety and the type that we do to ourselves based on what we focus on and what we think about. So I'm mainly talking about the kind that we do to ourselves, where by changing our state, we can change how we feel. And that's when we do have control over that, and it's not just a chemical imbalance, there are ways that we can use tools like the triad to help build that emotional resilience when things get tough.
Tell us about any upcoming projects that you're working on that listeners need to be aware of.
Well, there's two things. One is I'm building out the companion workbook to my book. So for people who are interested in that, I'm going to be announcing that they can join my newsletter on my website, glowliving.com. And the other thing is I'm talking to a lot of people about the possibility of having an ongoing group online coaching program because we can go over some of the principles of the book and we can help people get it into their daily lives and make it more personal. So I am looking at starting that up. I'm not sure of the right format, I think it might have to be a regular meeting or something like that. But yeah, I'm going to be announcing some kind of way that we can all connect as a community over this content and helping people with being able to use it to really positively impact their life. So if they sign up to glowliving.com's newsletter, I also have a newsletter on my Substack account, but let's just stick with glowliving.com right now. Then I can definitely announce when I'm going to be going online and doing some workshops and member groups and things like that. Because I do think that I'm definitely poised to do that in the new year, especially alongside New Year's resolutions.
So that's your website, glowliving.com.
It is.
All right. So
And it's
close.
GLOW living.com. Because sometimes
Got
people are trying to find fancy ways to spell glow, but I was lucky to grab that name early and I have glowliving.com. And then for my marketing services, I use glowmarketing.com.
got it. So close
And
us out
those are
with
related to my handles on my all my social too. So you can either find me at Glow Living, Glow Marketing, Glow Chandra. I got them all.
sweet. So close us out with some final thoughts. Maybe if that was something I forgot to talk about that you would like to touch on, or any final thoughts you have for the listeners.
I absolutely love your questions. And, the idea of doing all this is that ultimately when we're healthy, when our roots are balanced and we have that emotional resilience and we're rising into our purpose so that we can leave an amazing legacy, that's what it's all about is figuring out what we can give back, and at that point we will have something valuable to contribute. And I think that's really the core of what makes people feel like they're significant. It makes them feel like they have a purpose in life and they feel fulfilled. And that is how I define the rise part of my book. So you root down and balance your, all those roots and everything so that you can rise up and accomplish the things that you value and be able to give out something valuable to others to contribute in a deeply meaningful way to society. And that's what Root to Rise is about. So again, I invite everybody to get the discount of using Rise 25 at glowliving.etsy.com and get my book and let me sign up for you and let's keep in touch.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, y'all go get that discount. Check out everything that Chandra's up to. She's definitely the glow girl, so check her out on social media. Follow, rate, review, share this episode to as many people as possible. If you know someone who would like to be a guest, or if you yourself would like to be a guest, or if you have any feedback or suggestions for the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, visit www.curveball337.com. Thank you for listening and supporting the show. And Chandra, thank you for all that you do, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Curtis, and everyone listening.
For more information on the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, visit www.curveball337.com. Until next time, keep living the dream.